sometimes people just have got it. Today, we have a guest who's on vision, who's on purpose, and surprisingly young. My name is Gabriel Griess, host of the Navigating Leaders podcast. Thank you for being here. Today we have Allison Higgins, recently married, attorney at law, and you have lived 10 lifetimes of experiences. Thank you for being here today, Allison.
Thank you, Gabe. It's a delight to be here with you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored to have you here. And so we've covered a lot of stuff. We've chatted. It's, we've known each other now for years and had some serendipitous, run-ins over time, which has been really cool,
yes.
Right? To bring us here to this moment.
Yes.
But, in your youthful adult life, right? And this is coming from a guy in his 50s, right? And so it's first off, knowing you and knowing my kids and knowing so many powerful, amazing young people, I have infinite confidence in our future of our country and our nation and the world. So thank you for being inspirational.
Very kind.
Well, you've done so much. You really have. You really have. And so we've got, not only growing up, we've got time in the White House, time here running, leading a nonprofit, doing amazing, necessary work in some very dark corners of our county, which we can touch on. And now you're running a business with your new husband. So much to talk about. Would you just kind of walk us through maybe post-graduation out of college and how you stepped into this arena of adulthood and freedom, and how did you make some choices, and where did you go, and what did that teach you?
Absolutely, Gabe. Well, really on some days, I feel like I'm still trying to find the arena, but it's such a great adventure, right? Walking by faith. I went to college at Georgetown in Washington, D.C. I studied international relations. And while I was up there, I had some years and some friends that really changed my life. We were part of a small church plant that met in a tent outside. So in the winter, you had to really bundle up, and we all became charismatics because you had to jump to stay warm. And in the summer, you could wear your T-shirt and just enjoy and worship God. All of us worked professionally, whether it was I was in the White House, we had friends on Capitol Hill, or in the private sector, KPMG, a number of big firms who are in D.C. And we really set out to say, okay, God, how do we pursue you and your purposes in the earth? And how do we address the question of the sacred secular divide, as some call it? Our faith is so serious to us, but we also want to have great careers, and we've spent on these educations, and how can we put those to good use?
Well, we have to make an impact here, right? Through our communities, through the governments, through the schools. Like that's where we live on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, and that's tough.
And for so many people, it can feel so separate. Does my 9-to-5 job really matter to God when I'm just doing spreadsheets and that sort of thing? And we set out to hopefully prove to ourselves and then help share with others that, yes, it really does. It does matter in and of itself, as just worship, as doing your work as unto the Lord, but also the lives that can be reached because of that. I remember one day I was working on Capitol Hill one day, and our office printer had broken. So everybody's freaking out. We got to get this paper to the boss and all that. And somebody had said, well, let me get my crystals and see if I can do kind of a charm and get it to work. And I said, no. And I put my hand on the printer. I said, in Jesus' name, start working. And I was so embarrassed I did it. I ran out of the office. So I come back from like a casual water fountain break, and the printer's working. And they said, whatever you did, it fixed the printer. So little things like that, we can just be a witness to God's glory. Well, around that time, the COVID pandemic breaks out. So, we've got to adapt and overcome. Prior to the pandemic, my friends and I had been to 30 plus countries around the world. We knew a ton of people. And we said, okay, we're stuck at home now. We can't travel, but is there a way that when we're not doing our jobs on Zoom, we can reach some of these people on Zoom? So we invited these people from around the world to a little Zoom English club with us. And we thought, okay, these people are from Nepal. They're from Kazakhstan. They need to learn English. They can get these great jobs. We can help them. But we'll also see what God might do. So we have this conversation, and we said, okay, let's have our topic of our Zoom call of English Club be about dreams. What's a dream that you have? And we asked this question to the group thinking they'll say, I want to be a doctor. I want to move here. And this girl gets on from Kazakhstan, 17-year-old girl, and she said, I had a dream of a man all in white clothing, and his face was shining, and he's waving to me, helping me out of a really terrible situation. What do you think my dream means? So somebody else on the call says, well, I think I know who that is, and pulls up the Transfiguration, Matthew, where it shows Jesus in all his shining white clothes. And this girl gives her life to Christ on the Zoom call. So from there, we were just running and gunning, and we can get more into that later if we want, but that was my time in D.C. and then went to law school and pursued some other career things.
Well, go back to the Zoom call. This is great. Like we can spend 30 minutes just in your wins and your stories from Zoom. We won't, but give us more. That was awesome.
Yeah. You know, one of the lessons I learned during the Zoom time was sometimes we invest in things that we don't get to see the immediate fruit of, but God will sometimes let us see it later. So about 4 years.
You can plant, you can water, you can harvest, but you don't have to do it all.
And God will give the growth. So 4 years prior, I was in Indonesia, and I was in a very small island. I was there with some friends, and one of my Indonesian friends said, hey, my other friend is really sick. Can you come to the hospital and pray that your God will heal her? And I'm going, okay, I'm not really a healer. I don't have like a ton of experience with this, but like, sure, we can go and pray and just see what will happen. So we go, and it's really, you could hardly call it a hospital. There's bodies all over the floor. People are clearly sick and not getting the health care that they need. And her friend, a girl our age, is on this bed and unconscious and unresponsive. So we put our hands on her. We pray for her, like, God, please heal this friend. Nothing happens. And I'm just heartbroken, a little embarrassed too. You know, I've just, promised this people that I would pray for them. And have I, tarnished my witness for God too?
You didn't promise results, though.
Exactly. Don't promise results. And I never knew what happened until 4 years later. I'm living in D.C. and we get on this Zoom call, and an Indonesian girl I don't know hops on the call. After Kazakhstan girl came to Christ, this girl chimes up and she said, I can confirm this. She said, 4 years ago, I was on a hospital bed really sick, and this American girl and her friend came to pray for me. And the next day, God completely healed me. My whole family's now a Christian. And so just through those moments, you hear one person's life at a time getting touched, God allowing us to see his purposes unfold over time. That planted in all my friends and I a desire to say, no matter what we're doing in life, we want it to be about people coming to know the Lord, whether we're full-time missionaries or full-time business or law or whatever. This has got to be something we carry through.
Well, and I want to acknowledge your courage, right? We were... I'm in a Christian CEO group, and we were chatting yesterday, and we were talking about faith, and you can tell a mountain to move, right? And we went into that conversation like, imagine the amount of faith or the amount of commitment to actually pray that a mountain would move and believe it would,
right?
And that's what you did. You stepped into that arena, praying for a woman you don't know, right? And just that courage to take the action, right? And again, not about the result.
Right. It's the faith that Jesus would marvel at. It says he marveled at their faith.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. Anything else from that season you want to share?
We worked really hard. We did not sleep very much. So all the people who are big on the rest and the rhythms, and we probably would have disappointed that theory at the time.
Well, how did you handle care for your self-care? Now, young people, like, and you're a really young man, right? Can run like Energizer bunnies, right? I watch my kids do it. But did you have some moments of self-care, or was it your Sabbath and going to church? Like, how did you stay refreshed and full?
We had so much fun doing what we were doing. I don't think we ever really stopped to think about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're young, exactly. Today I would take Sabbath much more seriously and almost by necessity. But at the time, you're just seeing God move, and you don't really want to stop, and you're with friends and people who become your friends.
Well, and he can energize you too.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a verse at the end of, I believe it's Colossians 1. It says, I toil with all the energy that Christ has put in me. And I just love that. God's given us the energy.
Well, and you're on purpose, right? And when I'm centered and doing what I'm here to do, then it is, you're tapping into an infinite stream of energy, right? And a youth creator, like it's a healer, it's all sorts of things.
Yes, it's invigorating.
So how have you stayed centered, right? So for so many people, well, my life, when we look in the book, early in the chapters, I list 5 times I tried to blow up my professional life, like literally, like arrested, alcohol, gambling, like times I literally torched my career, right? Wow. And so, and I think that's actually more the norm than
Right.
you were able to stay very centered in your life, in your youthful life, when a lot of people wander, they turn away, they become prodigal, right? So how did you manage to stay so centered?
We all learn things from the people that we're around. And I was really fortunate to just have great people. Even if their values weren't exactly the same as mine, I could watch how they pursued them so faithfully. One of my mentors professionally at the time was Ivanka Trump. I never watched anybody work harder and care for the people in her life. And it's kind of surprising because you think, oh, she's a celebrity. She's probably getting everything handed to her on a silver platter. And then you go a layer deeper and you find out, she's working really hard for the people she's called to care for. Talk about the Sabbath. They observed it extremely strictly, carving out Sabbath for their families. So I got to watch some of that, and that inspired me to say, I want to continue to work with that level of excellence when I'm 40 and 50 and 60 years old. So what needs to happen now to do that? Along the way, as you've probably experienced running your own companies and being in the Air Force, trials are just part of it, and disappointments and things that are unfair. And that's where I had to really seek the Lord when those moments came and say, okay, God, I need to learn how to forgive a little more deeply on this. Or I need to learn, how do I really find humility in a world where it seems that self-promotion is your way to make a living on LinkedIn or on Instagram? How do I deal with that kind of question? And so just bringing those questions back to him, making mistakes along the way, probably going too far one way or the other way, and finding your way back to center has been part of that process for me.
Do you have daily practices you use to stay centered today?
I do. Each morning, I used to actually keep my coffee pot next to my bed so I could just push the button by the bed. Now it's in a kitchen, so I start with my cup of coffee and
black, cream, sugar,
straight black,
okay,
strong and black, and seek the Lord and try to write down, okay, what's on my mind that I need to get out of the way so I can focus on Him. Read something and chew on that a little bit, and then now I'm married and my husband and I pray together over what's happening in the day. I've used some different apps through the years. Lectio will give you midday reminders to pray, or Bible apps, some of those things. Another one that we've started lately, I learned so much about strength training from my husband. And so we use that time. We go weightlift. I mean, he's doing 10 times what I am, but
you could take him if you needed to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. That's what Pilates is for. And that's where we just kind of talk through some of those things, and they'll say, I think you need to forgive that person a little bit more, or I'll say the same back to him. And that just helps us check each other too. Those are some of our practices right now. So
in one of our earlier podcasts, I talk about prioritization in life, right? And so for me, it's God, self, spouse, kids, purpose, currency, or profession, right? In that order. And the first time I heard it, right, I learned it. I didn't make that up. I learned it from somebody. I was like, yeah, sure, right. You're completely wealthy and independent, and you can, manage all 24 hours of your day. Yeah. So sure, you can do that. But for those of us that have a real life or a real job or kids or responsibilities, I honestly, the first time I read it, I'm like, yeah, it's probably the other way, like job, purpose, kids, spouse, and then me and God get whatever's left, right? And so getting that in alignment in my own life was a game changer. But one of the things that I looked at was time allocation, right? When some people hear a prioritization, they're like, oh, well, if it's God first, then I've got to give God 8 hours a day, right? So I asked this in this frame to hear from you, because it's obviously meaningful and impactful, and it's been hugely beneficial to you. Like, what kind of time commitment is your morning routine? Like the reading, the journaling, the getting grounded part, right? Aside from the working out, which is awesome, but like, but like your spiritual health.
Yeah.
your relationship health with God. Like, what does that time frame look like for the listeners to understand?
That's about an hour in the mornings. Sometimes you've got to cut it short because you have an early morning and you don't have to get too strict about it. But even to your point of sometimes those priorities can feel really aspirational in the heat of what's urgent. And there's a book I loved. He kind of outlined some similar priorities. I think he may have had an acronym, but it's called Right Away and All at Once by Greg Brenneman.
Okay.
Turnaround CEO of then Continental Airlines and then made a career turning around companies. And he details how he did it as kind of a metaphor for his life and waking up one day and realizing he needed to turn around his life and getting those priorities in order. And he says,
was he already turning around companies when he realized he needed to turn around his life?
I think he was in his mid-40s and said,
funny.
hold on, I think I live at the company. What's happening?
I'm really good at solving their problems, not so much my own. Okay, that's
Exactly.
cool. Yeah.
And I love the title of the book, and it's kind of what he's saying. You can't leave any of the five behind. You've got to do all of these pretty quick and all at once. So it can be a little messy. You got to, kind of fit things in when there might not be enough room to fit it in. But it's really important that we do.
There's one I share all the time, and it's a lie that I think it's a lie that people hear or they talk about, and that's balance. And I'm like, it's impossible. Balance is impossible to achieve. And if achieved in a moment, it's still a dynamic event, right? If you're trying to balance all you might reach a place of this almost like equilibrium, like, oh, I've arrived, and then tip, it's gone,
Yes,
right? And you're on, you're on to the other things.
Because what happens when something gets added, they're immediately you're out.
Yeah. It's hard. So many folks, me being one of them, we want to do things right. Or there is an answer or a way. And in reality, every day's a pickup game.
Right.
Right. You know, it's just like,
you try to grab the chips that are most valuable, and yeah.
So DC was amazing.
Yes.
I too, Christy and I, that's where we got married.
No kidding.
Yeah, we got married when we were living in DC, and lived in Crystal City, right across the 14th Street Bridge. And so it was amazing to have the metro and go see the sights and experience our capital. As you left, right, came back here to the Metroplex, and you stepped into an arena that is about as dark as it gets.
Right. So how that happened was I enrolled in Texas A&M Law School, Gig and Mags, and did my first semester. Things were going great. I lined up an internship at a great law firm in Fort Worth, close to my house. And in February of that year, it became clear that Russia was about to invade Ukraine. So I'm kind of following the news like everybody else, and I had volunteered at this fantastic anti-human trafficking organization called Unbound Now. Through the years, my family had been involved. And then on the 24th of February, Russia invades Ukraine. There's a huge refugee crisis. We all see it on the news. An Unbound CEO starts getting calls from our friends all over Europe saying, hey, there's reports of trafficking. Can you guys come and assess and see what you can do and help? So I was single, I was available, and the CEO calls and says, hey, can you go assess, go to Poland.
Head to a war zone.
Exactly. My parents are like, here she goes, And so I took off a couple of days of law school, which I was pretty scared to do at the time. Your class rank really matters. You're just graded as you compare to everybody else, and that's it. So I leave and I go to Poland. This is early March. And it's pretty dramatic what you see, right? I mean, huge migration crisis. Normal people, these are doctors and teachers and even politicians and pastors who have had to say goodbye to their spouses. Some who have to stay behind and fight in the war. And all these women and children come and they're unaccompanied. And so we made our way down to the border. And sure enough, you see these guys in black leather jackets. And I mean, I've got my leather on today, but really, I mean, looking like your stereotypical, is this even real? Mobster. Yeah, like this should be in a movie. We don't really see that in the States. And they're approaching young women and saying, hey, come with me, and putting them in cars, and they're never being seen again. So we witnessed all this firsthand. And of course, at the time, the European governments are reporting online, there had been a 600% increase in searches for Ukrainian women on Google and on search engines. So the demand is skyrocketing for essentially prostitution, forced prostitution with these women. So we brought some volunteer teams over, and I remember whenever I was first there, I was on the Ukraine side of the border, which is a little risky to do because you never know when they're going to close it, right, back into Poland. And there's a huge long line, I mean, football fields down of people who are just waiting to show their papers and get in. This woman comes up to me. She's got a baby in her arms, and through Google Translate, she says that she needs a diaper. And I knew on the Polish side of the border, there was everything you could want, every kind of aid supply. But on the Ukraine side, there was nothing because no aid workers wanted to be there. So I called my CEO. I said, you need to get out here. You need a tailgating tent and some diapers and baby supplies. And this is going to be our little anti-trafficking hub with diapers as our cover. So she was out there the next week, and we set this up. And sure enough, we ran facial recognition technology and packaged intelligence and gave it to local law enforcement out there of traffickers and trafficking cases discreetly behind our wall of baby supplies we distributed. And that's kind of how everything got started.
Wow. Wow. And what did you learn about humanity?
Well, there's two elements. I mean, you're in the crisis and you're seeing suffering and seeing people's great resilience. And then you also have the management side of, okay, now we're managing staff and volunteers in an entity in a foreign country. So no shortage of things to learn. But I'll tell you who taught me the most about leadership in that season was a pastor I met out there. Very talented man, very famous pastor in Ukraine. He had over 400 churches that were part of his church movement, really big churches.
Wow.
Built on drug rehab centers. They would run these rehab centers, help people get their lives back, and then send them out to go plant churches. So he had ended up in Poland. There was a couple hundred folks from his congregations who were in Warsaw. And he invited me to a Friday night revival service, all in Ukrainian. I don't understand a word of what's being said, but I'm there singing along the best of my ability. And he sits everybody down after the songs are over, and he says, and I have a translator, so this is now how I was able to tune in. He says, I want to challenge everyone here. And these are people who've lost everything, their spouses, some have passed away. I mean, it's not looking good. He says, we are not refugees. We are missionaries to the rest of Europe. And as long as this war goes on, that is how we're going to live. And over the next couple months, I watched the people actually do what he challenged them to do. And they went and planted churches all over Germany, have seen tons of other Ukrainians and Slavic-speaking peoples come to know the Lord, even as they ministered to others out of their own great need. And that just helped me see, we talk a lot about the tyranny of the urgent and that kind of thing. Okay, if we can just get our eyes up off of what feels really painful or really important and see what God might be doing in any given circumstance, whether it's a refugee crisis or just law school, then we can start really having fun.
Or he'll use it for good.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think most folks would understand or have seen or experienced through Hollywood or movies, that stereotypical mobster, the war scene, the, smuggling and all those stories, right? But it's not just in the Ukraine.
Right. In Texas, there's 79,000 youth and minor victims of sex trafficking. The number comes from a University of Texas study.
I don't think we heard you.
79,000. Just youth and minors, just sex trafficking. It's all kinds of adults and labor trafficking.
In Texas.
Just in our state. Okay. Shocking. I've been involved with the Tarrant County.
That's like enough people to fill AT&T Stadium.
It sure is. Or the Aggie Stadium. And it's just an estimate, right? How do you estimate a hidden crime? It's very difficult. And when you think that this is happening to kids, it just makes your blood boil thinking about what's happening to them.
How young are the kids?
Like toddlers. This is some of what we're seeing. The average age at Unbound that we serve was about 12 or 14 among our youth clients. What's really sad is, and people who study sexual abuse and that kind of thing, maybe people have done a training for their church, so they've heard this. A lot of times abusers or traffickers, they hide in plain sight. So we dealt a lot with familial trafficking. A family member is the one inflicting this crime. And it can make it really hard to get because no one wants to report, oh, that's Uncle so-and-so, or we know that person. So it's very insidious. There's a number of solutions that do work and some that don't, and it's a complicated field.
So what's happening here in Tarrant County?
Tarrant County, one of the largest counties in Texas, we have a DOJ-backed task force. And the way it's structured is, I believe, what's led to its success. It's got a lead law enforcement agency and a cohort of agencies, and then a lead victim service provider and a cohort of service providers.
Okay.
These two arms work together on these cases, and I can tell you a story to demonstrate how.
Okay.
So there were two girls on the west side of Fort Worth who were teenagers. They were picked up by a trafficker. The first 3 days were the best days of their life, staying in a hotel, ordering room service. And on day 4, the lights go out. And that's when really awful things started happening. And they're having to service these clients. And they're being transported all over from hotel to motel. And they don't even know where they are, all over the state of Texas. So we get a report, and the law enforcement agencies have this. They're trying to look for this trafficker, but these guys know how to stay underground and change their phone numbers, and it can be very difficult to track. So a couple years go by, and Arlington PD, they have a fantastic human trafficking unit. They get a report that they know where he is at 10 p.m. on a Friday night. So 10 p.m. on a Friday night, they call Unbound, the lead victim service provider, and they call the DA's office, because you don't want to go do a raid and not collect the right evidence, or it's inadmissible, and then you can't even get this guy. So everybody on a late Friday night is working together to build this case and then go get the guy and get the girls out, and they were successful. That trafficker is now serving a life sentence on continuous trafficking charges. Amazing collaborative work. And what's really fortunate is that's happening at scale. It wasn't just one case. We now have 100 cases that are waiting to be tried in the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office right now.
Wow. And is this model being replicated?
It is. Yeah, DOJ rolled out, I believe it was 18 task forces the first time in 2015. And then every couple of years, they add another 18 task forces. Some pop up more organically. Those are awesome as well.
Wow. I kind of got nauseous as you were telling that story, you know. Were those same two girls still involved years later?
They testified in court against the trafficker.
How are they now?
You know, some do better than others in the healing journey. If I even just try to imagine having your teenage years torn up like that, how do you come back from something like that? One of the greatest resilience factors for survivors is having a great adult who was in their life before the trafficking happened. So those survivors tend to do really well. They have a normal to go back to that's psychologically grounding. Some were abused their whole life, and that's really hard to deal with the self-worth and purpose and that sort of thing.
Okay. I'm not usually at a loss for words a little bit right now. I'm looking for a segue to where you are now.
Yes.
So let's just go with that. You just keep the conversation going and let me sit here for a second.
You bet. Well, change was the name of the game in 2025 for us. At the end of 2024, I took a cold call to go meet with a donor to Unbound Now. And those donors I had known my whole life, lived on the same street as them when I was growing up. And they left the meeting and they called their son and they said, "Do you remember this girl? You need to call her." And so I get a call and we meet up, and this great guy named Connor Higgins. I had to leave.
Your last name's Higgins, right?
You see where this story is going.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
So we went on a couple of dates, and it was like, oh my gosh, where have you been all this time? This is one amazing guy, just brilliant and risk taker and incredible character as well. So we dated. We got engaged in July and married in October, about 2 months ago at the time of this recording. And during that time, he was in the process of starting his company. And as he likes to joke, there's a fine line between being an entrepreneur and being unemployed. I
know that line.
Exactly. So we flirted with it for a little bit and then got the company over the line. And now it's been really rewarding to begin to grow this business together.
And what does the business do?
This company is called CoverGov. We listen to every government meeting happening across the United States, from your local zoning commission to the U.S. Congress. We index all those meetings and make them searchable. So if you've got a medical staffing company, which I think you do, you might want to know when certain insurance policies are changing or HR rules, whether in your state or at a federal level. So you can type in your keywords and you'll get pinged when those policies come up for discussion.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So we sell to all kinds of different groups who have interests in what's happening in the public meetings.
Okay. So we've covered a highly dense yet relatively short chronological period. What's next?
Well, our parents are already asking when the grandkids are coming, so we'll have to see if that makes an appearance in the next couple of years. We are loving the season that we're in right now of getting Christmas trees set up and establishing our home. I'm getting to put my law degree to work, which has been really rewarding.
Internal counsel? Inside counsel?
Yeah. Yep. I keep a hand in the sales too. You know, I still have that edge from the fundraising. So, but we're loving the season that we're in.
So we were talking about vision and purpose and living. You know, we can get through just about anything when we're following God's plan for our life. So tell me about what it's like to live in that space, in that center of being on purpose and in your vision.
You know, I always had a strong sense that I wanted my life to matter for the gospel, for anti-trafficking, and then some pursuits related to government. That DC time was really formative for me. But the more life I've lived, and it's only been 26 years, so there's a lot left to live, but the more I do experience...
That's exactly half my life.
Yes. So you know double or quadruple what I do.
No.
But I get this sense that what God is doing in us is just as important as what he's doing through us. And that place of refinement and sanctification matters a whole lot. One of my mentors growing up would challenge us to say, I know it feels like what's happening in your 20s is the most important thing, but if you'll just almost tithe your 20s to God and let him work on you for a little while, you'll have a really great foundation for the rest of your life.
Yes.
So talk about purpose. That's something we're leaning into right now.
So for the listeners, right, a tithe is to give 10%, right, or to give your first fruits. And so what I'm hearing you say is to dive in your early adulthood to your faith and to your service and putting God and purpose first, and let those seeds then be nurtured and watered and cared for through the duration of your life.
Exactly. And I guess the tithe implies we might be living to 100. I don't know, but
there
if that
go.
Is our 10%, we'll take it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
well, and modern medicine would say you will live to be 100, barring, his will somewhere else or some other thing happening.
Exactly. That's the other principle of, and this is from the Bible as well, that narrow is the way that leads to life. And it's kind of an empty road sometimes. But the people you do find there can be your lifelong friends because they've got the same values. So then not only are you pursuing your purpose, but then you've got some other people to do it with.
A merry band.
Exactly.
So, Allison, this has been amazing. It's been awesome. Are there places we could go look for Unbound Now, or look for your current company, or
unboundnow.org, and then covergov.com is where, if your business needs some business intelligence, we'd love to help you get that.
Okay, awesome. Well, this has been an absolute joy and an honor. You continue to inspire me, and getting to have this conversation with you has been fantastic.
Thank you, Gabe. Likewise.
Absolutely. So, well, to everybody listening, what a gift, right? And what an inspiration, not only for what our future holds with the next generations coming up behind us, but also for a life of sacrifice and commitment and offering a hand up to those who need it in some of the darkest, most terrifying situations a person can find themselves in. So to Allison and Unbound Now, thank you so much for being here. To the audience, if I know it did, what resonated with you, share it, right? Share it with your friends, drop it in a text, drop it in a social media post. Make sure you like and subscribe. And until next time, my name is Gabriel Griess, the host of Navigating Leaders. Thank you, and God bless.